So the agenda for the day, we are covering the last few aspects of the Sahaj Marg philosophy. We have completed the prayer. We'll go through whisper, then some quotations from the master, then the last part of the Sahaj Marg philosophy, after which we'll take the question and answers. So whispers from the brighter world from July 5th, 2000. Remain still and centered in the heart of silence. Bliss is beyond all feelings. Heart to heart, in this holy space, cannot leave room for perception of the senses, which must be at rest. Here is peace and harmony. In successive waves, it pervades the place, which then becomes imbued and nourished by the divine essence. In these privileged moments, when the soul has its rightful place, the being of flesh calms down and prays. These moments of complete unity are rare. The innermost being must treasure them like priceless jewels. To console you for this necessary departure, which saddens you, we wanted to bring you to this shore where only love that overwhelms the soul matters. Pull yourself together, my daughter, you still have much to do. We repeat ourselves, but how else can we act with you humans who constantly need to be reassured and guided? The path, with few exceptions, cannot be shortened. One must go to the end as much as possible in serenity. Let's all kind of take a few seconds to digest what we have read. There are some crucial points. We'll speak about it a bit in few seconds. Does anyone want to share what is it that appeals to their heart in this particular message? Maybe two, three people can actually do that. There are quite a few important points in this. So any of you can actually raise your hand and share it. Go ahead, brother. Anand.
I think this part
Go.
at the beginning was appealed to me, where talks about bliss is beyond all feelings, and heart to heart in this holy space. Think here, heart to heart. I think Babaji is talking about himself and the medium. So
Correct.
what I understand, yeah, there's room for perception of the senses which are at rest, which must be at rest. So bliss, interestingly, is not connected to feelings here. It's connected to peace and harmony. That I thought was different from what I had in mind earlier.
Correct. Good. So very important point. Bliss is beyond feelings, and it's in tune with peace and harmony. That's why one of the things that happens in Hindu mantras is that almost every mantra ends with a Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That is what most of the Hindu mantras actually end with. And there is a reason behind that. There is some discussion about that also in the 1944 Whispers, if you read. There's a discussion on why most of the Hindu mantras actually end with that Shanti mantra, uttering Om Shanti three times. Okay, so just keep that in mind that ultimately we end up in that perfect peace. We keep talking about what is there in the center, and then very easy acronym to remember is that PCMB. So most of the people are well versed with PCMB. We are all bombarded with PCMB during our pre-university examinations. What do you want to take? PCMB, PCME, PCMC, all kinds of things. So the best thing is PCMB. So perfect calmness, perfect moderation, perfect balance. That is what we actually end up with near the center when we align with the center. Okay, much easy. And there is a other way of looking at it is that we actually enter into a 3D cinema when we go to the center. That's another way of remembering. What is the 3D is what is the state of the center? The state of the center is like dumb, dry desert. So it's 3D. You can remember that state of the center. It's a 3D state. Dry, desert like, it's very dumb. That is what it is like in the center. So you can remember these two acronyms, PCMB and 3Ds. Okay. So this is
PCMP.
interesting that you mentioned this, that bliss is beyond feelings. Now, can you think of one or two levels where you can actually experience the bliss? What's the most commonest thing that is actually spoken of in spirituality in the context of bliss? Can anyone think of that?
SDK.
SDK. So Sahasradal Kamal, the condition that there is described as Sach Chit Anand. So bliss is supposed to be the highest that anyone can reach. And if you look at the traditional yoga books, they talk about the Sachidananda as the highest state that a man can evolve to. But then this is something slightly different from that bliss at the SDK. What is this? This is more to do with the real bliss that Babaji talks about. You remember that the end of religion is start of spirituality, end of spirituality is start of reality, end of reality is start of real bliss, and when you go beyond that, you have reached your destination. You remember that famous saying by Babaji? And that is the bliss that he's talking about, the real bliss. The bliss that comes after we have aligned ourselves with the center. That is what we are talking about here, as the bliss which is beyond all the feelings. We would have left the feelings way before we reach that particular state, much before. Okay. So let's pause at that. So brother has picked up two important points. So the first point is in terms of the bliss which is beyond all the feelings, because many people have bliss as an element of their regular feeling. But Babaji is making it clear in this message that it is beyond all the normal human feelings. And the second thing is that he is picked up is on the bliss which is in harmony with the peace and uh, harmony. It's in alignment with the peace and harmony in the center. Okay. And that is only experienced in the heart to heart space, nowhere else. And in fact, when the initial three sittings are given, one of the things that is done is that the Abhyasi's heart is connected to the master's heart. So, in other words, a link is made between the Abhyasi's heart and the master's heart so that that gradually strengthens with our practice. Now, that's a very important step that we do when we initiate an Abhyasi into our system. That is one of the steps that is taken, undertaken. So just remember that in the context of what we are reading, that's also kind of relevant. So Vidya sister, you want to go ahead and talk about anything else? You had raised your hand. I think you
Yes.
felt a bit pain, so you lowered it.
No, no. I thought, no, brother. In the
Go
second
ahead.
paragraph, uh, uh, I felt that when the soul has its rightful place, the flesh calms down and prays. That's what I felt. So that means we lose maybe body consciousness when the soul is in right place.
Hmm. Good. Go ahead.
So these moments where the soul is in right place, where there is complete unity, is really very rare. That's what I used to think. So those priceless, Master calls it jewels, our innermost being must be treasured.
Good. See, there are three levels of consciousness that we actually go through. And our goal is beyond these three levels of consciousness. Babuji writes in the other complete works about the need to go beyond body consciousness, then beyond mind consciousness, and ultimately beyond the soul consciousness to be able to reach our goal. So please remember this, that we have to go beyond the body consciousness, mind consciousness, and the soul consciousness in order that we can actually reach where we are supposed to reach as the goal. Okay. Now, when we are in flesh here, that means when the soul is embodied here in this realm, the moments where the soul finds its rightful place are like on and off. It's not like a very constant thing. And these moments, that's why he's writing that these moments of complete unity are very rare. When we can exist at the realm of the soul, we are beyond the realm of the body consciousness and the mind consciousness. We'll talk about it today later on regarding the stages of realization. When we are covering that, we will talk about it. But this is one important aspect that we have to go beyond three levels of consciousness in order that we can actually reach the highest. Okay, good. Karthik, you want to go ahead?
Hello. Sorry, brother, that one thing I wanted to ask that you're saying PCMB, right? That can you just repeat it if you don't mind, please?
So that is the condition that is there in the center. Perfect calmness, perfect moderation, and perfect balance. So if you want to remember what is the condition like in the center, PCMB and 3D, these acronyms will actually help you remember that. Babuji is taken to the center and he exclaims after reaching the center, is this what I was actually striving for hard so much? There is nothing here. It's just like a dry desert state. Is this what I strived for so much? Then Lalaji says, okay, if you're not very kind of happy with this condition, shall I take it away? And Babaji says that, oh, I cannot live without this condition. So please don't do that. So it's a really a very dumb state where it feels like a dry desert because it's devoid of all the things that we are experienced to at the level of the body, mind, and the soul. It's beyond all the three. So it's very, very dry, like a desert. And it's really a very dumb state because there is no awareness also there. So awareness is also now gone. So then you might ask one simple question. How did you become aware that the state is so dry? Right? So we will talk about it some other time, but it's a very valid question. Go ahead, Anand.
I mean, this was in relation to what how you described PCMB. I thought not at the center, but near the center, there's also a lot of power, right? Did I hear you say that once? I think, right? So it's that does not mentioned here, no, calmness, moderation, balance.
The
Somehow
power,
power.
good that you
No,
asked
no,
this
that's
question.
yeah.
You're talking about the power, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a bit of a slight confusion in your mind regarding the power aspect. I'll just describe where the power is, where it is not.
Oh,
The center is powerless.
yeah.
So when we align towards the center, we also become likewise. Then the question comes, where is the power then? The power is beyond the show. There is the first stir, the primary stir, which is called as the show. Then from the primary stir onwards, downwards, there is the manifestation of the power.
Mm.
Prior to our goal, if we have to reach the center, we have to cross over the primary stir. Once you cross over the primary stir and start aligning with the center, which is stationary, which is powerless in its nature, we start imbibing that. We will be there in the infinite ocean or the state of thumb that Babuji describes. But what is there in the state of thumb or that infinite ocean? We are experiencing the same condition as the center. We start imbibing the same condition as the center, which is powerlessness and uh, stationary condition.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the power is outside. So to say, outside the primary stir is the power. But the moment you cross the primary stir and enter into the state of thumb or the infinite ocean, there is no power there. There, Babuji describes it as invisible motion. And then we'll talk about it in the efficacy of Raja Yoga. What happens when we actually enter into the final, that infinite ocean? Then how do we actually travel through that ocean? Babuji writes that you have to be taught a new way of swimming, which is not going to create any resistance for your further journey. The normal swimming that we have learned here in this life is not adequate to swim in that infinite ocean. So that's a slightly different thing, but your question is valid in the context. Where is the power? The power is after the first stir, primary stir, you get that power. But before that, which is where we are going to cross into the infinite ocean or the state of thumb, there is no power. All that is there is invisible motion.
Okay.
Okay. So, and then go ahead, Piyush.
Uh, the the last line that the path with few exceptions cannot be shortened. So mm, this one indicates that this is the shortest path.
Correct. Of all the possible paths, this is the shortest path.
This is the shortest path.
Anyway, when we go through some of the slides, we will talk about it. There are quite a few points to ponder about today. Okay. Uh, in the normal course of the things, the path cannot be shortened. When we talk about shortening the path, you are talking about a place where you need to bring many samskaras to bhoga. And as we have read in the Heartfulness Way, nature only brings one samskara to bhoga at a time. It's a very long and arduous path. It's not that easy. However, if we are in a system where these samskaras can be worked on, in fact, one of the things that you people need to pick up as you go through this training process is what are all the possible ways in which the samskaras can be actually worked on. And that's a very important aspect to be picked up. Okay. I think I had asked this question in one of the sessions previously. What are all the ways in which the samskaras can be worked on? There are multiple ways. And wherever you actually come across a particular way of handling the samskaras, please make a note of it. Because that will be like the gist of the practice that you're doing and the journey that you're supposed to undertake. So just keep that in mind. How do we handle the desires and how do we handle the samskaras? Because these two are ultimately are going to determine what is going to happen to us, to what extent our journey will be shortened. Okay. Any other point that somebody else wants to pick up? Manikandan?
Yeah, this we repeat ourselves, but how else can we act with you humans who constantly need to be reassured and guided? That reminds that masters all ask us to read every day, and then this whispers, and then as you referred on the other day, Lord Krishna couldn't make Arjuna to hold the details, for many days. After 4 5 days, he back to his own form. Like that, even I feel like every day we have to remind our goal. So that aligns with this one. Why we are asked to read, know, remind our goal every day, because it is our nature, as I understand. Because though I feel that okay, I can remember, but that physical memory it has its own uh, defects. So that is one thing reassuring.
Correct. In fact, in the whispers, many times Babuji repeats the same message in many different contexts. And he's repeating here also that we have to repeat because human mind has this need to be reassured and guided. If you look at some of the messages previously, say 2 3 months before this message, this is in July 2000. You go back to April or March 2000, March 2000. You will see that when the medium has established contact with Babuji, she is very skeptical of these contacts. She says, am I hallucinating? Where am I getting all these messages from? Am I losing my mind? So repeatedly, she seeks evidence to say that these are real contacts. Now, that contact actually has been established for a few years, but still that skepticism in the human mind does not go away. So it takes a lot of convincing from the hierarchy to help the medium settle down that these messages are indeed genuine. Okay. And then the medium keeps asking, show me the evidence. Only if you show me the evidence and I am convinced of the evidence, then I will believe. So, Babaji writes, the evidence will come in due course of time. You will be able to grasp it in the right way. Now, even for us to catch the evidence, our system needs to change and adjust to what is happening. And I always keep repeating this sentence. Experience precedes sensitivity. Please write it down. Experience precedes sensitivity. Sensitivity always comes later, and that is where the difficulty we have got. First, we experience things. First, a taste is given to us. And in order that we are able to recognize that experience, we need sensitivity. When we are given repeated experiences, that is what actually makes us more sensitive to be able to catch that experience in the right perspective. Initially, when we are given a taste of the experience, we are not in a position to catch it. Either we are unaware, or if we are aware, we cannot catch it in the right perspective and make the right sense out of it. For you to be able to make the right sense of it, right perspective to be caught, and the right meaning to be caught out of it, you require sensitivity. And that requires a repeated experience. Okay. Now, if you look at that last session where sister was talking about how do you recognize a guru. Now, she's talked about all the experiences that you have when you are in the presence of the guru, but those experiences have to be repeated. A one-off experience will not be sufficient for you to identify a guru. Those experience has to be repeated and reinforced. Then you get that confirmation, yes, this person is indeed capable of leading us in our spiritual journey. And that second part of being repeated and reinforced, that's very important. Many times we are bowled over just by one or two experiences that we have had with the same person. But we require concrete evidence. If you look at Vivekananda tests Ramakrishna Paramahamsa multiple ways. He tests him over a period of a few months to few years before he accepts him as his guru. So we have Vivekananda's example. But then if you just look at Babuji's and Lalaji's example, that was not there. In the sense that when Babuji went to Lalaji for the first time, immediately felt in the heart that he is my guru, and then that's it. That was the end. But then that happens much more rarely. Where there is lot of testing, lot of skepticism, is normally what happens. Very rarely, under some set of circumstances, you can have the other way around, where within the first meeting you will be able to recognize. Then why could Babuji recognize Lalaji in his first meeting? What was the circumstances under which his soul was born, Lalaji's soul was born? How are they connected previously? All these things we'll talk about some other time. But that example is a rarity, not the norm. The norm is that humans require a lot of reassurance. Okay? Karthik, go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, brother. There is this one question I wanted to. Why the samskaras they don't want to go away so easily? Why they keep on clinging so much? Like you do it, it has to be left out. But then you do constant remembrance. Then the week is little bit, the hold is slightly weakened. Then the more and more you go on, surrendering, devotion, whatever, then you that thing goes off. But then again, the same samskara or whatever, that impression it comes back. So my question basically is why the samskaras don't want to go away so easily?
There are multiple reasons for that. I can just list 2, 3, but there are multiple reasons. One reason is that we actually give energy to the samskaras at the subconscious level, over which we have no control, conscious control over it. That's one of the reasons. At a conscious level, you might want the samskaras to go away, but at the subconscious level, you yourself are giving the energy to the samskaras. So until you reach that level of the subconsciousness where the consciousness expands and the conscious mind is able to become aware that this is what you are doing, you will be able to withhold that energy from the samskaras. Second reason is that the samskaras of the same nature as are stacked up one below the other at multiple places. Suppose a particular set of samskara of a particular nature is cleaned from a part of the heart. There could be other parts of the heart where these samskaras are stored. So it feels as if like a deja vu that we have cleared this set of samskaras. Why is that I'm actually getting the same set of samskaras now? So that's the second thing. Third thing is that, for example, even this question today about the samskaras that you are asking, where is your attention of the mind going? Is it going towards the consciousness or is it going towards the samskaras? You're asking the question, but where is the attention going?
Correct. Attention of the mind.
Attention is going towards the samskaras only. And that fundamental rule of nature holds good here. What is the fundamental role of nature? The rule?
It's to be pure, in perfect balance to remove all the.
But the fundamental rule of nature is that where your attention goes, that gets energy. I'll just give you a simple example. When people come to us for a consultation, they keep repeating the same problem again and again. Now, as long as you actually repeat the same problem again and again, you are reinforcing the problem because you are energizing the problem. You just need to tell things to the doctor only to the extent where the diagnosis can be made. Once the diagnosis is made, you should not repeat the symptoms. When you stop energizing the symptoms and now you start energizing the way out of the symptom, you actually start recovering faster. Even in the consultation room itself, the recovery starts. But most of the time, people have the belief that their recovery starts after going home, after taking the tablets, after they do what the doctor has said. but they are not sensitive enough to grasp that the moment the attention of the mind goes in the direction of the mode of recovery, the recovery is already started, because you are no longer reinforcing the samskaras or the symptoms that you have actually come out with. So this switch has to occur immediately. When that switch does not occur immediately, very few people are sensitive about this particular switch. When that does not occur immediately, it takes a long time for the patient to recover. And that's no different even for an abhyasi. In fact, many times when we were taking sittings, our preceptor used to say, why are you worried about the samskaras? They will be taken care of by nature, and time will take care of it. Why do you worry about it? Your journey is to focus on the consciousness, attention, being attentive to the consciousness, being aware of the consciousness, and look at how you can actually do things or lead life in such a way that the consciousness can expand. This is the primary bit that you need to do. In terms of the samskaras, either they'll be cleaned off, or you will undergo the bhoga off, or you will eventually you will work out a way of how to handle these samskaras. Because as you expand in consciousness and the sensitivity becomes better, your ability to handle the samskaras also will become better to the extent that is necessary. So just keep this perspective in mind. There are two ways of looking at spiritual journey. Either you can focus on the expansion of the consciousness and the journey thereof, or you can look at the samskaras and then try to get rid of the samskaras and then undertake a spiritual journey secondary to the getting rid of the samskaras. These are the two paths available for everyone. Okay? Srinivas?
Brother, this is regarding some of the whisper messages. Say, I have read somewhere meditation with AM, J or AM, F. Sometimes J he mentions. Who are this AM and J or AM, F?
Not to worry about all the names, brother.
Uh,
Let's not see. The point is, the names are irrelevant. They are
okay,
only contextual.
okay.
What we need to do when we read the whispers is to catch the essence of it.
Essence of it.
That is more important.
Okay.
Sometimes we get dragged into unnecessary things. Even if you know the names of these people, what are you going to do? You tell me that.
No, that's right. But only thing is, we'll at least come to know who are these people, like.
What are you going to do?
No, like that, the messages are coming to
Okay.
Helen Parrott, no, like that. Who are these people who are working on that
I
or
asked
something?
you one simple question. What are you going to do? You did not answer that. It could be A, B, C, D, F, E, F, whatever it might be. What are you going to do with it, even if you know the names?
No, we can't do anything about
1
that.
minute.
Yes.
When I say catch the essence, what we are talking about is you
Mm.
might be curious about the names, but it
Yeah.
is irrelevant as far as catching the essence of the message is concerned.
Okay.
What makes
Understood.
your life better is the essence of the message,
Okay.
not going to the nitty-gritties of who or what it is about.
Okay.
So when you read the whispers, you might have some tendency of curiosity towards the names that are mentioned, but
Names, correct.
always
Yeah.
try to catch the essence of the message, because anything that you read, the one basic question that you have to ask ourselves is it
Yeah.
something that's going to add value to my journey of spirituality? That is what you should be looking at.
Okay.
Don't go behind unnecessary details. It is
Okay.
irrelevant.
Okay, brother.
If you catch the right essence, it should add quality to your practice, to your spiritual
Yeah.
journey. It should
Okay.
add value to it. If it is able to do that, you have done it appropriately.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you,
Continue.
brother. Okay.
Okay, shall we move on now? We shall move to the next slide. So there are these two quotations from Babuji. Just read that. If somebody wants to read it, anybody wants to raise their hand and read it? Vidya sister, go ahead. Vidya sister, go ahead.
First message: I do not care for surrender, nor for cooperation, nor submission, nor reality. I only want to see, believe, and like in master.
I think that probably is live in master, I think, rather than like.
Yeah.
Probably should be
I,
more appropriate to say like live in master. There could be an error there. That's what I felt.
I only want to see, believe, and live in master. When you love your master like that, your master becomes dissolved in you, Babuji.
Good. The last part, the master becomes dissolved in you. I think that's a very, very important component. That's exactly what you're actually trying to do. When you make yourself deserving, this is what is supposed to happen. The master becomes dissolved in you. Okay? Our practice is only for that particular purpose, where we make our heart ready for the master to dissolve in essence in us. That is the essence of the practice. Okay? Rekha sister, go ahead with the second one.
When our, yes, brother, when our condition becomes lighter than the practice, then we do not feel that we are doing practice, Babuji.
So practice becomes irrelevant. In this context, you should remember that everything that we do as a practice, whether it's going to be meditation, whether it's going to be cleaning or prayer, has to have an end at some point of time if we are doing it properly. When we start feeling on certain days, when we reach that stage where some of these things actually is irrelevant for our journey because we have crossed that level, what we tend to feel at that time is that the practice itself is actually felt as a burden rather than as a necessity. The condition is so subtle that the practice itself is felt as a burden, as a heaviness, rather than a necessity. Suppose you are so light in your condition that when you actually practice meditation, rather than becoming lighter, you feel that the meditation is actually making you a bit grosser, the act of meditation. Then the act of meditation is not necessary at that stage. Likewise, when you have crossed certain levels, cleaning becomes irrelevant. Prayer also becomes irrelevant. Those are things to be pondered about. When is it that the need for the meditation, the need for the cleaning, and the need for the prayer actually stops? So that's a question for you to kind of ponder about as you understand this Sahajmarg philosophy. Now, in the context of Sahajmarg philosophy, we just wanted to mention one or two points here. The thing is that there are various philosophies, and many of the Western philosophies are based on speculation rather than practical approach. That's what Babaji writes in the books. And he says that the basis for a philosophy should be wonder or curiosity. We already had 6 darshanas in Hindu philosophy. And K.C. Vardachari writes that Sahajmarg philosophy is the 7th darshana of Hinduism. Now, what is this philosophy and what is this importance in terms of the context of the religion? Now, this philosophy is a kind of a theoretical framework based on which the practices are performed. It provides a basis for the practice. It provides a means of understanding what we do in the practice. That's the importance of trying to grasp any philosophy for that matter. But if the philosophy is only going to end in giving you some concepts without necessarily giving you any concrete steps regarding how to actually experience those states, you can say that it's incomplete. The philosophy will only become complete when it also gives you some way of actually going through that particular process and catching what is written in that philosophy in an experiential state. So it should give you a method. In that way, Sahajmarg philosophy, Vardachari brother writes that it's a quite complete philosophy in itself because it not only gives you the theoretical framework for this entire practice, but also it gives you what are the steps to be done in the practice in order to experience what is actually written. So it has both these components. In that way, it is kind of quite a complete philosophy. Okay, because I'm talking about this particular point because this week I've had 2 questions. People say one of the question I have got was one of the person said, Babuji says that God realization is so simple, Then why has he written so complex books? This was one of the question. Second question which was asked is, if we read all these things, don't you think it is going to color our mind or experience? Because we then will start imagining many things. So it is better not to read and then just directly go through the experience. So these were the two questions that was posed during the course of this week. It's an open question. Each of you can actually ponder about what could be the answer to these questions. But as of now, Revered Daji has kept an exam. You have to write the exam. You have to get a certain amount of marks. And in preparation of that, it is inevitable that you have to read something. At least to that extent, you have to do. Beyond that, what is the role of trying to understand many of these complex concepts and at the same time trying to not be affected by what you have actually understood is something as a question that you need to ponder about. Okay. So with this introduction to the philosophical aspect, we'll go to the next slide. Okay. There was this concept of space and time, which is there in one of the chapters of Sahajmarg philosophy, which was left out. If you look at the Sahajmarg philosophy in the context of the avatars, the identity, and other things, this particular aspect was somehow not covered. So we thought we'll just cover this particular aspect before we actually wind up the presentation on Sahajmarg philosophy. Now, what you are going to read through the slides is what is given in the book, more or less, but in a point form. But this should actually arouse some amount of questions regarding what is happening in terms of our understanding. So let's go through this and then kind of ponder about it and then maybe have some interaction in terms of question and answer about this particular aspect. So what Babuji says in the complete works, Sajmark philosophy, is that before creation there was only space, endless and all pervading, without any being or God. Okay, so please underline this particular, without any being or God. What was there at the start? The only thing which was there at the start was space. And that was endless and all pervading. The being of the God or the Isha was a later development and it took time to come into existence. So from space, Babuji writes, God came into being. God came into existence. From God, time came into existence. Now this is the sequence that he writes. Initially it is space. From space, God comes. From God, time comes. And from time, creation comes. This is the sequence that he actually describes. In a way, if you look at the relationship between space and time, Babuji says that space is the mother of creation and time is the negative state of it, which emerged later on. In a way, you can say space is the positive aspect of it and the time is the negative state of that space itself. Motion existed in everything, however subtle and invisible it might have been. Now, he is here alluding to the concept of the invisible motion just next to the center. You remember we keep talking about it. The invisible motion next to the center. Now, the question might come, what is the cause for space? We have now understood, suppose if you think that we have now understood the concept of the God and the time, the necessity for that. What's the need for space at all? What's the cause for the existence of space? And the answer given by Babuji is that the need for creation actually was the cause behind the existence of space. So just ponder about some of these things. The need for creation. Now, creation itself came about from God, time, and later on the universe. What's the cause behind the existence of space? The space is eternal and the mystery of its worship is hinted in the Rig Veda, though not fully clarified. So, We'll go back to these slides if necessary. Just ponder about some of these points. There are 5 or 6 points which is kind of put up on this particular slide. And the sequence of creation is that initially space was and still will be in the end. From space, God came. From God, time came. And from time, the creation happened. Just keep this perspective in your mind. Now, there are many people who have spoken about this question. Then, if God actually came from space, why not worship space only? Why to worship God? And Babaji writes that, of course, there are some discussions about this particular aspect in Rig Veda, but it's not a finally settled point. I'll just give you one other perspective in this concept. Vivekananda says in his complete works that we have to go beyond three consciousness. Like earlier, I told you, we have to go beyond body, mind, and soul consciousness. Vivekananda writes that we have to go beyond three consciousness. He enumerates three different consciousness. He says we have to get rid of the cause consciousness. We have to go beyond that. Then we have to go beyond the time consciousness. And then we have to go beyond the space consciousness. This is the perspective with which Vivekananda writes in his complete works. So keep this perspective also in mind. The third perspective to keep in mind is Einstein's concept of the space-time continuum and its role in the manifestation of gravity. So just keep that third scientific perspective also in mind. And now people are trying to explain. There was a recent paper just 2-3 days back published, which talked about how the entire creation can be explained only by gravity and the quantum, and the gravity in the context of space-time and the quantum. These two things are enough to actually explain the entire thing in the creation that we see around. So in other words, the scientists are also knocking on the same place where the spiritualists also are trying to go. But only thing is they are trying to get the answers in the external realm, while the spiritualists are trying to get the answers in the internal realm. In other words, the scientists are trying to get the answers in the external realm, in the macrocosm, while the spiritualists are trying to get the answers in the microcosm. Okay, Kishore, will come back to you. I know that you raised your hand. We'll come back to you. So I'll just present this particular aspect, the origin of the space and time, and then we'll come back for discussion. Now, Akasha or space is absolute. It is perfectly pure, unalloyed, and not composed of particles. Which is also the case when we talk about the space. You remember the 5 elements that we talk about? We talk about space as an element, and we many times confuse between space and ether. There are some books which write about ether as an element and not space. And here, when we are talking about Akasha or space as the absolute, we are talking about Akasha as space, not as ether. Please remember that. So there is a big difference between Akasha as described as space, Akasha as described as ether. Ether is a very fine element and it is composed of particles. Akasha is beyond particles. Please remember. Then from Akasha, you get Avakasha. Avakasha is nothing but time. It is the grosser form of Akasha emerging from it. So from space, if you just kind of for the time being overlook the God aspect of it, you remember the sequence. From space comes God, from God comes time, from time comes creation. If you remember the sequence and you now call that space as Akasha, and you kind of for the time being overlook the aspect of the God there, from Akasha you can say that the grosser form of Akasha is Avakasha, which is time. So how are Akasha and Avakasha related? Akasha is the finer aspect of Avakasha. Avakasha is the grosser aspect of Akasha. That's how they are related. And you remember what we spoke about in the last session, that the most important contribution of Sajmarg is that it talks about this aspect of grossness and subtlety. This is a very, very fundamental concept that actually takes us to higher and higher levels. Okay. Now, the third sentence, the universe is a manifestation of Avakasha and God is a manifestation of Akasha. This is one mark question for you in your MCQs. Just keep this in mind. The universe is a manifestation of Avakasha or time. And God is the manifestation of Akasha. Okay. The inner circle led to the outer universe, and the intervening portion represented the duration. Now, in other words, you take the center and the invisible motions as the inner circle. From the inner circle, then came the stir. From the stir, you got the time, and from the time, you got the creation. What is that time? Time is the intervening duration from the primary stir onwards to the manifestation of the creation. That intervening portion is what is called as the time. Upon dissolution of the outer coverings and intermediaries during Mahapralaya, only Akasha remains. So, what happens at the time of Mahapralaya? The creation is gone, time is gone, the stir is gone. We all exist in close alignment with the center in the latent motion. That is what is going to happen at the time of Mahapralaya. So, all the things which are manifested is gone. What are all the things which are manifested? The time is gone, the creation is gone, the stir is also gone. What exists after Mahapralaya is the center with the latent motion near it. That's it. Those are the two things that will exist at the time of Mahapralaya. Now, thus identity transformed into Akasha, indicating that identity is Akasha itself. Please underline this. It's only that place where Babuji has talked about identity as Akasha. Nowhere he's talked about the identity as Akasha. Just keep this in mind. Identity is the Akasha. Now, when you say the identity of the soul, the true identity that we go back to when we enter into the central region, we enter into our state of true identity. Now, what is that identity? That identity is nothing but an aspect of the absolute. That is what he is now talking about. It is an aspect of the absolute. So just keep this in mind that the identity transforms into Akasha, and identity is Akasha itself, and Akasha is nothing but space which is the absolute. Okay. Now, when only the absolute existed, which are in other words, when only the space is the space or the absolute or the center exists, there was no concept of time. The thought of creation emerged in the base, still free from everything. In other words, the center was there, next to the center was the latent motion. When the thought arised from the center, when we say here the thought of creation, we are talking about the dormant will of God getting activated. That is the thought that he is talking about, although he is putting the words of thought of creation. When the dormant will of God arose and got activated, it created a stir in the latent motion. That gave rise to everything else that we see and experience. Due to the motion, the thought transformed into power, needing a field for its action. So, you remember there is a latent motion, and we just told you that everything lay hidden in the latent motion in a dormant form. When the time of creation came, I am again using the word time of creation just because there is no other words to use, because there was no time at the time of creation. But I'm just using the word in the context to just make it understand at our level. When the creation was about to be done, when the dormant will got activated, what happened? The invisible motions, which was kind of boiling, where there was a lot of power hidden in a latent way, the moment the primary stir occurred, there was crevices which was created, through which whatever was there in the dormant form in the latent motion burst forth, and that gave rise to the power. And the power needed a field of its action. The pause between the cause and effect, the original thought and the subsequent being, became the duration or the time. Time merged into power, becoming the field for further action. Now, many times we talk about time itself as the power. So, there are two things which arose at the time of creation. The latent motion was there, the primary stir was created. and whatever dormant power was there or the dormant energy was there, that burst forth through the crevices of the Kshob, and it started coming out in full force. When it started coming out in full force, that became time. Now, the time got merged into this particular power, and then that actually added more energy or more power to the aspect of the creation. This is what Babuji is talking about. This power, the root of all powers, can be utilized through strong willpower, though modern science fails to grasp its full significance. So, time is the root of all power. Now, we talk about the time is what is pushing creation, time is what is expanding the universe. Even as of now, we talk about in modern science also that the universe is expanding at a faster rate. Now, one of the actors in expanding the universe is the time. So, it's important to understand that if we can tap into the power of the time, which is the root of all powers, which we can do by our strong willpower, then there are many things that we can achieve which a modern science cannot achieve because it's failed to grasp the significance of the time. In other words, we have not reached today a state where we can utilize the power of time. Okay, so I'll just leave it here, pause for the time being. Any questions we can take? Go ahead, sister Nirmala.
Brother, why is time called? Why are they saying it's negative? In what way is it negative?
That's why I said in the context of space, it is viewed as negative. The space in itself is viewed as positive. In the context, see, the space is stationary. It is unalloyed and pure. The time, in contrast to that space, is where activity is existing, creation is taking place. In that context, time is viewed as a negative of space. In space, there is no creation. In time, there is activity and creation. So, in that context, it is viewed as the negative of Akasha. That's all it is.
Okay, I would have thought creation is positive. Okay. I mean, in the general
You
sense
can
of,
think the other way. No, you can think the other way around also. If you think creation is positive,
yeah,
then the space will be negative.
negative. So it's just that it's opposite
It's
polarity.
opposite of one another. That's all he's trying to say.
That's all he's trying
So
to say.
remember, you might need to wonder what is the need for creation at all in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a
Right,
question for
brother.
you to ponder about. What is the need for creation?
I read somewhere that it is like you're supposed to, be 100x, 500x times better than what was earlier. That is the explanation I think Daji also gave somewhere, and I read it somewhere, but I'm not very convinced.
Anyway, it's a fundamental question to be pondered about. What is the need for creation at all?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, brother.
Now, you for that to be understood, you need to have one particular concept that there is the creation and there is Mahapralaya. There is creation, there is Mahapralaya. And Vivekananda explains in his complete works as involution, evolution, involution, evolution. And this cycle is going on for eternity. Okay. Now you might need to wonder why is this cycle going on for eternity? Who is it that is going to escape this particular cycle?
Yeah. I mean, they are saying, humankind is restless, but it looks to me as if whatever it is restless.
Again, it's a philosophical point to ponder about. Is it the thing which is created which is restless, or is it the human beings who are restless, or the souls which are restless? Which part of the existence is restless? We have not covered that particular aspect in the sense that what happens to all the souls at the time of Mahapralaya? We say that they all lose their identity. When they lose their identity and they go back into the latent motion, how does the next part of the creation, next cycle of creation take place then? Is the next world created as the same as the previous world, or is the next world created differently?
I mean,
What is
it
the
ought to
basic
be
one?
logically, no, brother.
Okay, let's leave it there. No problem. Kishore Bhatt, go ahead.
Yeah, brother, my question also. So the sequence what we discussed was the space, God, time, and later this need for existence. Somewhat it gave the reason for the or why the space existed. Somewhere, if I so need for existence, what it says is it something like I somewhere read for energy itself also it cannot be in the it has to manifest. It cannot be in the solidified form, otherwise it somehow loses powers or becomes null or whatever it is. So is it the correct understanding? And if it is the energy which has to manifest, then what is this energy which exists even before the creation?
It is not called as energy before the creation. It is just called as some kind of a latent motion which existed. See, there are three terms that Babaji uses. He uses the word latent motion, he uses the word power, and then he uses the word energy. Energy is something that comes later on in the creation. Just remember that. It's already a grosser aspect which is actually coming. That's why this particular concept of the grossness and the subtleness is to be kept in mind when we are looking at the creation as it is explained by Babuji. The aspect of grosser and the subtler. The more subtler a thing is, the more powerful it is. Now, normally we associate power with more energy. That is not the case. For example, we might actually feel the physical energy, but our thought or willpower is much more stronger and more powerful than the physical energy that you feel. So if you look at this in this particular context, the more subtler a particular thing is, the more powerful it is. So as we go to higher and higher states where we are actually establishing ourselves in subtlety, we become more and more powerful. And that's exactly what is going to happen to our will also. That our will becomes very powerful. That whatever we will, it will start manifesting. It is bound to manifest because our will is so strong in alignment with the subtlety. So, unlike material realm where increased force is supposed to be perceived as more powerful, in the spiritual realm, it is the more subtle thing which is more powerful. It's a bit opposite, so to say. In other words, when we hardly do anything in meditation, we actually go deeper and deeper, and our meditation will be more powerful. Likewise, there are certain things that can be done as perceptors. When the suggestions are given at a subtler level, then more work tends to occur than when it is given in a forcible way or filled with energy. So this particular concept you need to understand. In the spiritual realm, it is the subtlety that matters, not the increased force. But in the material realm, what matters is the increased force that you have to sometimes use. Okay, there are two different things. Just remember that in mind.
Okay, sorry, one more thing if I can. The need of existence, maybe this is too much going into hypothetical, but need of existence of what? Like they are saying the need of existence, but for what? Or what is that of whose need? What need?
That is exactly the same question that we talked about earlier on, which we said, what's the need for creation? It's the same question now you're asking in a slightly different set of words, right? So if you actually go to the Upanishads, there are few answers given. The Upanishads gives you few set of answers. Now, depending on each person's bent of mind, different people will probably perceive different answers as more satisfactory than others. Okay, it's not without reason. But then one of the questions that Upanishads asks is, when you go beyond the realm of the mind itself, and your identity itself, who is there to question what is the need for creation? And it is given in a very cryptic form in Viveka Chudamani. Shankaracharya writes that you are given the power of creation when you are made aware that there is no creation. This is what he writes. When you are made aware that there is no creation and you are given the power of creation, why are you going to create anything at all? When you go back to your original state and you realize that there is no creation in the way that you thought it existed, why are you going to create anything in the first place? At that time, the power of creation becomes invalid, so to say. At that level, you are given the power of creation. But anyway, this is another question, that is another answer that is given. The third answer that is given is that the entire creation is God's play. Now, if you look at it from a slightly different perspective, God does not want anybody to suffer. It's like when we have children, do we want our children to suffer? No parents would want their children to suffer. Now, if that is the case, but we still send our children out to some expedition or some exploration, various places. And then at the end of the day, we want our children to come back to us safe and secure and happy. That's all. So if God, we are our God's creation, we have been sent here to actually experience what He has created and go back happily after exploring everything here, go back happily and safely to back to Him. There is another answer that is given. The fourth answer is that God wants us to manifest Himself. He was bored. He was only one person. There was only one. At the time of creation, what is there? There is one. Even science says now that there was singularity at the start of creation. Now, whether you want to call it one or singularity, whatever term you use, there was one. And that one wanted to manifest as many. Now, in each one, it wanted to manifest as the perfect it is. God is perfect. The absolute is perfect. So, when the absolute is perfect, it wants to manifest in each of the thing as perfection. But when each of these things asserted their independence, or so to say individuality, it became imperfect. When it became imperfect, God had to create a mechanism where these things which have now become imperfect can go back to perfection. And this entire creation is His mechanism for the imperfect beings to go back towards perfection. This is another answer that is given in the Upanishads. So there are multiple answers that is given. Which one we are kind of okay with, it's for us to kind of pick and choose. Until unless we reach a stage where we become convinced in our heart, okay, this is the most appropriate answer experientially. At a mind level, you can be convinced with any particular explanation. But when you come down by experience at the heart level, and you then by experience feel that this is the most appropriate at the heart level, then that is probably what you will probably stick to.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So keep your mind open and explore all these possibilities. Okay. Anand.
Okay, so there was space, and then God came into being. Then there was the dormant will of God, right? Stirred creation, time creation, right? That's kind of God, right?
Correct.
So during Mahapralaya, we're saying everything goes away, goes back to only space. So what that means is God also goes away.
Correct. That is what. If you go by what is the explanation given at the time of Mahapralaya, everything goes away. And now what you call as the center is the God that you're talking about, the absolute. Now that is still there. The space is there, the God is there, and the latent motion is there. These are the three things that are there.
So
now, God need not exist in the way that we actually think about God as of now. But God is an aspect of that particular space. That is what he's talking about.
So there are kind of a base is also we call God. And
exactly.
Then after space came Isha, as they talk about. That also we call God. That goes away, but the base remains, I guess. I mean, this will be two gods here.
You don't call the space as God. Remember that.
Huh.
You don't call the space as God. So the aspect of the space where the God has manifested or the center is, that stays as it is. Like the space is there eternally. The center, which is an aspect of the manifestation of the space, that center or the base stays as it is along with the latent motion.
Okay.
That is what he's talking about.
The Isha that is called out here was a later development. That would go away, I presume, right? I don't know if my question is correct or not.
No, the question is correct, but I'm just trying to say that you are trying to differentiate between the absolute and the Isha.
Yeah.
That is your central question.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, since the space is eternal, the Isha is also part of that space.
Okay.
In the context of that particular creation, there is that Isha which is necessary, which is the center. Correct? Otherwise, the space is there all the time. That's what he's saying. The space is there all the time. In the context of that creation trying to come into existence, the one part of the space now takes on the role of the Isha. One part of that particular space. It's not like that space is going to separate out from the rest of the things. One part of that space is going to take the function of the Isha. So at the time of creation, at the time of Mahapralaya, everything that has come, since the Isha is part of the space itself, that will be there. What is going to happen is that the Kshobh, the time and the creation which has happened, all these things will go back to the center, and just next to the center, that latent motion, that is where we all rest. Now, in the context of that, you can say that there is the latent motion, there is that the Isha or the space, which is part of the space, and the eternal space. All the three are there.
Okay.
Now, that is where he talks about the Rig Veda, and that is where Vivekananda has a slightly different perspective. He says that we have to go beyond the space consciousness. That's exactly what is supposed to happen when we go towards the center. When we go to the center, what Babaji says is that we become totally unaware. Even at the level of the identity that we read about previously, we are aware. We have a grosser identity, we have awareness. As we go through the central region, our identity becomes more and more subtler. Now you might wonder, in this one of the slides I mentioned that identity is nothing but Akasha. You remember that I told you to underline that identity is Akasha. So what is it that the identity is going from grosser level to the finer level? The grosser level identity is nothing but the Akasha covered in some finer forms of covering. What is these finer forms of covering? The idea of separation, anxiety, and desire. These are the original coverings of the identity. Prior to that, that identity was in close approximation with the center. This is where I gave the example of the fire with the spark, you remember? So the identity, our identity, and the identity of the center is one and the same. The only difference is in terms of the quantity, not the quality, the quantity. Both are Akasha. The center is also Akasha, our identity is also Akasha. Just like the fire, when it kind of gives out the spark, there is no difference between the spark and the fire except for the quantity. Both have the same quality. There is brightness in it, the spark also has brightness. There is light in it, they also have light. There is heat in it, there is also heat there. It's only in terms of the quantity that you are actually differentiate between the fire and the spark. Now, if the spark is actually blown into, it gradually gets converted into fire only, back to its original state. Likewise, when the identity goes back towards identity, which is Akasha, goes back towards the Isha, which is the center, it regains its original condition. What is its original condition? Space only. Like when the three coverings are removed, what remains of the identity? All that remains of the identity is the space. The space which is unaware. But since we have the body, till the time of Mahapralaya, those identities which have gone back to the center and removed all the coverings, they do not merge back into the center. The space does not become merged back into the space of the center. Now, what is supposed to happen? Those identities where they have already reached that particular state of Akasha, after the Mahapralaya, those identities now is gone back to the center. Those identities which have not reached that realm, but they still had the coverings when the Mahapralaya took place, they become the basis for the next set of creation. That is what happens. So this is one aspect which we have not covered, but just keep this thought in mind. There are two set of souls. One soul which has now recognized this identity as Akasha, and it's become in alignment with the center. Those after the Mahapralaya merge back into the center. In other words, they are not going to come back again. However, those souls where they still have the effect of the samskara still retained in them, there are various stages of liberation, or they are not even tried for spirituality at all. They are at various stages of evolution. They retain the effect of that even when they go into the latent motion. Now, the next creation will be different to the previous creation based on the needs of the souls or the samskaras that they carry. Now, when I say samskaras, it is not the grosser samskaras that we are talking about, the samskaras in the causal form. That is what he talks about. He used the word parinama, or the impact of the samskaras from the past. It has a causal element to it. So the next set of creation will be based on the souls which have those causal samskaras in it. Based on that, the next set of creation takes place. I don't know whether I actually put it in the right set of words. Could you grasp it or not? So there are then this will answer your question. Why is that we need to do the spiritual journey at all? If we don't do the spiritual journey at any point of time in our existence, we will keep coming and going, no matter how many times you have gone through Mahapralaya. It doesn't matter. So we'll keep coming and going. Don't think that at the time of Mahapralaya, all people, those who have actually achieved some progress in spirituality, those people who have never tried for spirituality, those people who have achieved the peak of spirituality, all will become one. Yes, they'll all become one temporarily. After the time of that phase where everything goes into dormancy is past, what will then happen is that the souls which did not actually progress spiritually or did not try for spirituality, they will come back into the new set of manifestation or creation. That is what is going to happen. So it is up to you when you want to actually make this effort of progressing spiritually. Progressing spiritually is the phase where you actually recognize your alignment with the center as both being Akasha. Our identity, our original true identity is of Akasha. All the samskaras, everything came on later on, after we actually got the mind and the body, and then with the help of the mind, we started interacting with the world. And when we started interacting with the world, we started taking impressions of the world. That became the samskaras. They came later on. But primarily, we were there as true identity with some fine coverings. The coverings of separation, anxiety, and desire. Now, if you take the example of one of the easiest things to relate is Christian example. In Christianity, God says to Adam not to eat the apple. And Adam eats the apple. And they say that is the start of the descent or the fall, the big fall. That's what they say. Now, I'm just quoting this story just for the sake of understanding. When Adam asserted his identity or his separation or his individuality as separate from God, that led to the next set of the events that took place. If you had aligned with the will of the God, there is no question of descent. Since here God said, don't eat the apple, he said, no, I'm going to eat the apple, whatever you say. Now, the moment that came about, there was an assertion of the individuality at the level of the soul. And then the descent came about. So I've just given you a glimpse of what is likely to happen at the time of Mahapralaya, and many people have this notion, anyway at the time of Mahapralaya we are all going to go back to the same center. Why should we strive anything at all? And what I'm trying to say is that even though you go back to the same center, after Mahapralaya and after the time of dissolution is ended, those souls which have now strived for spiritually will all come back. It's almost like people during the COVID times were passed exams by the government without them even attending the schools or the colleges. They were given some marks and then spent, allowed to go forward. But then after that, they're now back to square one. Something similar, you can say.
So no escape.
There is no escape. Exactly. You have to make the efforts. Now, the timing is your choice. Whether you want to make the effort in this life or any other life, that's your choice. But there is no escape in that way.
Just brother, one small clarification, confirmation maybe. So the state of identicality with the Akasha is the condition of tam, like when we are identical to that, and we become similar to that Akasha
Correct.
thing. Is it the
Correct.
same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
But as long as the creation exists, as long as we exist as the true identity, some semblance of separation is maintained. At the time of Mahapralaya, that is now gone. At the time of Mahapralaya, that semblance is also now gone. Then what is going to happen is that those souls which have actually become identical with the center go back to the center. That which is not in identical with the center, which retains the impressions or the impact of the impressions of the past creation, they come back into the new creation. That is what happens. So the fundamental thing to understand is that the absolute and our identity both are Akasha. Absolute is also Akasha. Our identity is also Akasha. Just keep this particular point in mind. Okay? Ravindra? Ravindra Kumar? Vidya sister, go ahead.
Brother.
ಹೇಳ್ರಿ.
ಅದು you were discussing about this divine will force. Regarding that divine will force, because of that will force this creation has created, is the will force is hit something else, and because of that force is creation started.
Now,
Hello?
nobody has expanded on that particular point. Where does this will force or willpower reside? Where does the divine will of God come from?
Yeah.
It's not something that is expanded or expounded anywhere. All that they say is that till now, people have not been able to work out where exactly this will force is actually trying to manifest from, or where does it reside, so to say, and how does it reside. These are all very pertinent questions, but these are things that have not yet been fully uncovered, so to say, even from spirituality perspective, even from the reality perspective, because by the time you go to that realm, our own identity becomes identical with the state of God, and then all that we do is we start functioning alike to God. So we start getting the impulses from God and we start functioning accordingly. Now, since your identity is your what do you say, the mind is now not there, the consciousness is now not there, it is very difficult to ponder about where exactly is this will for residing and how does it reside. Babaji tried to experiment with this, and he says that he tried to enter a particular last ring. When he tried to enter the ring, he was actually pushed back by great force. But he could get a peep for a few seconds. And he says that probably for a human being who's born here on earth, this is the last ring where they can actually try to enter. But there is no access to the center itself. You will still remain as a separate identity, and there is no way of knowing where is this divine will coming from, or how is it kind of divine impulse descending into the person who is there in the latent motion. So in answer to your question, we don't know as of now. Okay?
Babuji Maharaj written that is a dormant force, a
Right.
related force, something like that.
He says dormant will of God.
Dormant will of God.
Okay?
God has come only
Both.
after creation. Just now we discussed
God has
that
the
after this creation started, Kshob or still, then came Isha or God. Before that, there was no God.
no. I think you got confused.
Oh,
From space came God. From God came the primary stir, and from primary stir, time came. From the time came the creation. This is the sequence.
yeah. Uh-huh.
So God did not come after the show. He was there before the show. You can say that point in the space where the creation started as the God. You can take that as the thing.
Okay.
That point in space where the creation actually started, you can take that as the God.
Yeah. Thank you.
But
Brother.
that is before the stir, not after the stir.
Yeah, before still.
Okay.
Brother,
Yeah,
you
brother.
are mentioning God and now you are mentioning God, no? That God and center is both are same. Is it
Exactly.
correct?
When we are talking about the God, we are talking about the center of the absolute. Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Right, brother.
Vidya sister, go ahead.
Very good. I somehow always thought that after creation there was time. But now we are talking that there was time before creation. So the time now, what's this relationship? I was confused.
Time now means
The time what
No.
we talk about now,
as of now.
as of now, life,
That's why
time.
we talk about time in two context.
Yes, brother.
I think if you look at it from that particular perspective, it will make sense. When we talk about time in our practical day-to-day purpose, we talk about time in the context of the present, the future, and the past.
Yes.
Now, this time is within the purview of the creation.
Okay.
It's within the purview of the creation. Now, when we talk about the time in the context of spirituality, we are talking about eternally present. In that state of eternal presence, this concept of time becomes irrelevant. So, when you are existing in the state of the eternal present, that itself is a separate power.
So time has power.
Time is power in that particular context, the eternal present concept. Now, we always say that you have to be eternally present. So, you can be eternally present while being in the past and the future in the context of the creation of the time itself. So, there are two aspects of time to remember. One is after the creation, there is this time that we talk about where we are in the present, and then we talk about the past, and then we talk about the future. A spiritual person will exist in the eternal present, not in the time in the context after creation.
Okay.
That's the difference. So, for a spiritual person, time does not exist because they have recognized their eternal existence. When we recognize our eternal existence, why are we worried about the time at all, either as a past, present, or the future?
Yes.
Time becomes irrelevant. That is when we say that we go beyond time consciousness. Does it make
Thank you.
sense?
Yes, definitely.
The
I have
way
to
that we
ponder about.
perceive life here
Ah,
is a later manifestation. At our eternal existence level, which is the true identity level, we all exist eternally. Now, after we come down from the true existence or true identity or true existence level, at one point of time, we catch hold of the concept of life.
okay.
It is in this context, Krishna says, all the souls are eternal. Who are you killing? The soul cannot be killed by anybody. In Bhagavad Gita. When Arjuna says, how can I kill my family members for just one small piece of land? Krishna says, the soul is eternal. You cannot kill anybody. The soul cannot be killed by anything. It's always in existence. It is eternal. That being the case, now you can think of If the soul is an aspect of the space, is it eternal? Right?
Yes, brother.
The space exists eternally. If the soul is an aspect of the space, it also exists eternally. If after from that level we come down further, then we get entangled in the concept of life and death. At the state of self-realization, we realize that we are existing eternally. There is no question of life nor death to the soul. That is what we experience and recognize. And that is what is called as awakening of the soul or realization. Does it make sense? And then, but the time itself is not the end of it. You have to cross the time and then go towards the space. And then recognize that our identity, which is Akasha, is in tune with the Akasha of the Absolute. That is when you say that you have realized reality. Self-realization is one thing. Reality realization or Bhuma realization is the next step. That happens when you recognize that the identity that we carry and the identity of the Absolute is one and the same. That's the next step of the process. Okay. Vishnu Kumar.
Thank you, brother.
Brother, in the space step, can we add this Lalaji's philosophy in the Truth Eternal, where he says that Purushartha and Prakriti has taken place, and from there the creation has been taken place.
Purusha and Prakriti, you can see one of the philosophies that actually talked about the Sankhya philosophy. We talk about the 6 darshanas, no? One of the darshana is Sankhya. And Kapila Muni talks about the concept of Purusha and Prakriti. Same thing, the consciousness and matter. So it's talked about in the context of consciousness and matter. Then there are other concepts we talk about the Purusha and the Prakriti, and Ashtanga Yoga, Patanjali Yoga, Yoga Muni also talks about the Purusha and the Prakriti. There are various conceptions. Again, static and dynamic is one other aspect. The concept of Shiva and Shakti is another aspect. They're all aspects covering these points of the creation that happens at different stages. So if you take the center, which is stationary, as the Shiva, which is supposed to be the absolute. Now I'm just kind of giving you a form to that center, which is the Shiva, which is stationary. And then you take the Shakti as the manifestation of that particular thing, which is dynamic. Then you can take that you are having 2 forms, the Purusha and the Prakriti. In fact, Prakriti itself has 2 forms. There's a material Prakriti and there's a spiritual Prakriti. And the Purusha is beyond all these things. The Purusha, you can look at it from the concept of the center being the Purusha and rest everything as the Prakriti. That can also be looked at in that particular perspective. So this concept of Purusha Prakriti can be misleading because many times when people talk about Purusha and Prakriti, they take the male and the female form. So they give a form to it. And Purusha is supposed to be the male and the Prakriti is supposed to be the female. So that can be quite baffling or difficult to grasp because on one hand we say that we have to go beyond the form, beyond the gunas and beyond the motion. But on the other hand, when we have the concept of Purusha and Prakriti, we give form, a male form and a female form. If you give a form, male form and a female form, it is a totally different level of creation. It is not the level that we are talking about near the center. Just keep that in mind. Okay. So when we try to grasp it through the concept of Purusha and Prakriti, by giving a form to it, it is a lower down in the scheme of creation. But when you try to relate the Purusha and Prakriti in the context of one being stationary, other one being dynamic, then that would probably be more in alignment with what we are talking about today. Okay.
Yeah, okay, brother. One more thing. The question he asked that why the creation has happened, but Charlie just told in a simple way, as I have put it in a message also, maybe you read, that the power has been overflowed and creation has been happened. So he put it in a simple way, I think. Chariji Maharaj has put it in a simple way.
As I told you, there are various ways or various reasons, possible reasons or plausible reasons given, whichever anybody feels that they can relate to. I think they are free to choose that. Nothing wrong with that. Okay.
I think all these answers uh, will give a shaman to our own mindset questions, I think.
Definitely. See,
Will
the whole
develop
point of this
yes.
philosophy is to challenge the narrow view that we hold about life and gradually go towards a state where we go beyond the realm of the concept of life and death with that we have got entangled into. And we go towards that state of our existence, which is our true identity. That's the whole point of actually talking about all this philosophy and other things that we are discussing today. Okay.
But I think in the Daji way style, kai ko dimag kharab karta, if take it in a simple way.
You can do that also. You can just read as much which is necessary for your examination and leave it at that. That's entirely up to you. Okay, that's why I said that whatever might be the level with which we understand, eventually when we experientially reach a certain stage, some of these concepts will become necessary for us to go forward. Till that time, you can say that काय को दिमाग खराब करता है. You can say that. Nothing wrong with that. Okay.
Okay,
Then
thank you.
go ahead.
Brother, if the soul is eternal and beyond duality, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, what is the purpose of distinguishing between good and bad actions on the spiritual path?
The simple reason is that soul is eternal and non-destructible is something that you have actually read about, but it's not something that you have realized. In order to realize that, this concept is necessary, the concept of good and bad. For that state to be experienced, this concept of good and bad and living life in the context of good and bad becomes necessary, because that is what is going to make you more finer and subtler to be able to experience that state. Okay.
It could have been the reverse also. I mean, I'm saying that if everything is at the same state, where is the question of good and bad? Where is the question of up and down?
But only when you reach that stage, you can say that. Not before. When we have reached that stage, you can say everything is the same. But as long as you don't reach that stage, it's only become a theoretical concept, and then that can actually take you off track. Now, at every point of time in our life, say parents say that when we are young, we have to study. Then you say that at the end of 60 years, anyway, everyone has to retire. Why should I study at all? Why should I work at all in life? Now, when you come to 60 years and you are at the stage of retirement, that might be valid. But that is not valid when you are 18, 20 years of age. So sometimes trying to apply a concept when we have not reached that stage can actually be detrimental to our journey. Because if we apply that concept that anyway at the end of 60 years, everyone is going to retire and government is going to give some pension, why should I actually work through the course of life? Why should I study and why should I work at all? Then all that you will have is that this phase between 18 to 60 will be a very difficult phase for you. That is what is going to happen. So that's a choice that you can make. Nothing wrong with that. But then you should be ready to undergo that particular difficulties in your phase of life as you pass through. Okay, that is the detrimental impact of applying a particular concept prematurely before we arrive at a particular stage. Okay, Manish.
Yeah. Yes, brother. I have a question that now, if a soul is liberated, that is, it has crossed the heart region. Now, before completing the mind region and entering the center, if the soul leaves the body, now this mind region journey and like if the soul is in the center region, So for this completion of this journey, will there be any other world to complete this? Like now we have this material world for completing these journeys, right? So for the mind region, will there be any other world, and center region there will be any other world?
Definitely. There will be other realms of consciousness where that particular soul will be born. And there it will continue the journey. The importance of liberation is that once you achieve liberation, then the journey becomes automatic. Before you achieve liberation, the journey is not that automatic. You have to strive towards liberation. That's where we have to apply our will to go towards liberation. So this is like an exit which is given by nature or God to be able to go to the higher realm at a faster pace. Once we cross the liberation, after that, if we don't go further in this life itself to the extent possible, we will be liberated, and after that we go very slowly towards the higher points in an automatic way, like we have evolved from the single cell organism to the human form in an automatic way by nature. We will go from that form to the next level in an automatic way. But there are other things that can happen. If you read the 1944 Whispers, the 4 volumes, so you will actually understand that there are other possibilities that opens up. But then those are all things which comes once in a while. So you will not come back to this realm. That's all that means when we say liberation. But we will be there in a different realms of consciousness. That is what will happen. Okay, Ravindra Kumar.
So regarding this same question, the movement, the conscious movement from point 1 to point 3 during sittings or during bandaras and satsangs, when this is happening, the consciousness is expanding and soul also enlightening. When this is happening, is this happening in our framework of physical body at the same time in the mental womb of master also?
Not in the mental womb of master. There is the concept of the macrocosm and the microcosm. So when the journey is occurring within the microcosm, within the frame of the body that we are talking about, the soul is now getting enabled to go into the macrocosm. That's all it is.
Only after reaching from point 6 onwards, master will touch in his womb and deliver it into greater world.
No, not even in the 6th point. That's only
When that
done.
stage.
That's only done in special cases, only when the soul comes to the 9th point.
Oh.
Not in all cases, only in some cases.
In certain discussions, our entity is already there in the brighter world, I listen.
I just now told you, not everyone.
Okay.
Only in certain cases, that spiritual entity is actually delivered into the brighter world. Even
It
with
is
the
happened.
particular soul.
It is happened through master's mental womb.
Correct.
Journey.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's continue and finish this. So, the last part of the Sahaj Marg philosophy, the journey through the heart region. In the 23 circles that we see that Babuji has given in the last page of the book or in the reality at dawn, the journey begins from the outermost circle and we gradually proceed towards the center. Meditation on the heart, which is the nucleus, is the method of travel along this particular spiritual path. There are 5 subpoints or points or subcenters in the heart region, each pass through in succession. Now, at each point, there are 4 conditions which are experienced. A peculiar state awakening consciousness of the divine force pervading all over. In other words, the person feels that there's a kind of a divine force. There is an awareness or consciousness of the divine force pervading everywhere. This is the first state that is felt. The second state is that there's a state, a divine state, which is prevailing everywhere, full of remembrance. In the first stage, it's only awareness. In the second stage, you feel a divine state full of remembrance of God. In the third stage, both the awareness or the remembrance, both are gone. There's a feeling of negation. And in the fourth stage, It's a stage where everything is gone, even the impression of existence or negation is also now gone. This is what happens at every point that we pass through. Now, these four conditions recur at every point and region, becoming increasingly rarefied as one progresses. So, what happens is that at every point, these four conditions come about, and the conditions become more and more rarefied and subtle as we pass through higher points. Now, you know the 1, 2, 3, 4 points, and then to the fifth point, there is a zigzag manner in which the journey occurs. But after the fifth point, the journey leads directly to the Agna Chakra, which is with its peculiar condition. The journey to this point, which is the Agna Chakra, involves a feeling of shadowy darkness, indicating that we have to go much beyond light. Now, from the Agna Chakra onwards, we have to cross the 11 rings or the circles of ego. As one progresses, the condition becomes more finer and subtler as we dismantle the layers of the ego. By the 16th circle, the egoism is almost dissolved, which is rarely attained even by the great sages. And Babaji writes that maybe Kabir is the only person who might have reached that particular stage. What then remains after we have crossed the 11 circles of ego is the gross form of identity, which is further refined as we journey towards the center in the central region. I think it's the central region, not the Virat region. It's the central region. There is a mistake here. Passing through the Sahasradal Kamal, which is the 1,000-petal lotus, one enters into the macrocosmic Virat region. Here, a changeless condition is felt called as the Brahmagati or the state of the divine. Now, although the state of the divine is felt at the starting of the 10th point, that goes on becoming more and more vivid as we go near the center. Crossing the 7 rings of the splendor in the central region, one enters the infinite. And for this part of the journey, entering into the central region and the journey in the central region, we require definitely the support of the Guru. Even in this vast expanse, the subtle ways from the seeker can create barriers. Only a capable Guru ensures continued progress. So, in other words, until unless we enter into a state of living dead condition, the progress in the central region is not possible. At the dormant central ring, one meets the last limit of the human approach. A peep into it pushes one back. This is what Babuji tried. The last ring, he tried to kind of enter into it and he was pushed back. At the highest state, the dense identity becomes more refined, placing one in closest harmony with the real. Though complete mergence is not possible to preserve a nominal difference between the soul and the God. This is the last of the uh, part of the journey that we undertake, and this is what is detailed in the last chapter of the Sahaj Marg philosophy. So I'll pause here. If you want to go back to one of the previous slides, I can just take you there. The 4 conditions that you have to look at every point. Then from every point, as you move from point to point, the condition becomes more rarefied and subtler. Then there is a zigzag manner as we go through the heart region. As and when we enter into the Agna Chakra, the path straightens out. Before that, we actually feel a condition of shadowy darkness, which gives you an indication that you have to go beyond the light. Then we enter into the mind region from the Agna Chakra, where we cross the 11 circles of ego. Once by the 16th circle, the egoism is almost dissolved, and Kabir is probably the only person that Babuji talks about as having attained that state. After that, what remains is the gross form of identity and awareness when we enter into the central region. This journey in the central region is only possible with the master support. And when we reach near the center, we reach a state of changelessness, which is called as Brahmagati. Now, in the central region, the subtle waves of the seeker can create barriers. Hence, only a person who is in the state of living dead condition can successfully, with the help of the Guru, cross the 7 rings of splendor. What you would get at the after reaching the 7 rings of splendor is that you have the infinite ocean. Then after the infinite ocean, you have the central ring. If you try to enter the central ring, you are pushed back. Now, by the time we reach near that central ring, our identity has now become a super refined identity, or you can call it as a fine identity. From a grosser identity, it has become a fine identity, and the awareness is also now gone. We have now started existing at the level of the unaware state. But complete mergence into the center is not possible to preserve a nominal difference between the soul and the God. This is the last part of the journey. So I'll just stop it here and we can take any more questions to ponder about. Okay. So come to the last part of the journey. I think some people are sharing some files in the group. People can have a look at those files. Kirti has shared some file. Okay. Anyway, any questions or any thoughts? You can go ahead. Dolly Pandey, go ahead.
Namaste, brother. So, when we say the complete mergence is not possible even at the last stage of the center, so what happens when we, have this Mahapralaya? At that point, will we merge, or again there will still be a difference?
One, it has recognized the complete identicality between the identity and the center will merge back into the center. Although it is
Okay.
not said anywhere else, but this is the
Mm-hmm.
inference that you can draw after reading. That you
Okay.
don't need to come back to the next creation. Those souls
Mm-hmm.
which have not reached that level of identicality with the center, they will come back. That's what will happen.
Okay. Okay. Right. Thank you, brother.
Apurva sister,
Brother, one question, like two questions I have. One is, so this creation which has happened, is it like a recent one or has it happened like many a times?
it has happened many a times.
But the progress of each person, like when Master has, Babuji has said, even gods they are in heart region. So I was kind of wondering, is it kind of recent or like even though if it has happened a long time, so we are still away from the reality.
Correct. It's happened
What?
multiple times. In fact, when you read Yoga Vasistha makes a comment in one of the explanations to Rama. He says that Krishna is going to come in the 28th Dwapara Yuga. Now we talk about Dwapara Yuga as only one. We think that there is only one. The creation has occurred multiple times.
Okay.
And when we actually talk about different concepts from mythology or different characters from from our history or mythology, whatever you want to call it, they all come in different time frames. Krishna did not come in all the Dwapara Yuga. He came only in the 28th Dwapara Yuga. No, now that is a different kind of time frame that we need to kind of get used to. Now, one of the previous sessions I told you about the website, no, the Encyclopedia of Authentic Hinduism.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just have a look at it. And the concept of the time is given multiple concepts. We use the word Kala, Kalpa, Manvantara, Samvatsara. There are various concepts of time. And if you look at that particular concept, that will make sense. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna says that one day of Brahma is 1000 yugas. One day of Brahma. And one night of Brahma is also 1000 yugas. So, after creation, when the Mahapralaya occurs, after 1000 yugas, we will enter into a very long phase of dormancy that lasts 1000 yugas. But after that, again, it is reactivated. That is what happens. So we are only talking about one yuga, one creation. And if you just look at the things which are explained all these things are there in Bhagavata Purana also. The different concepts of time and other things. It's something that you can actually look at from the Bhagavata Purana. Okay. Now, rather than make us put off the spiritual journey. I think it should actually reinvigorate us to undertake the spiritual journey in the current context, because this is the only phase or time when all these possibilities have opened up. That's why Babaji writes, nature is actually open, is welcoming everyone with open arms to go to the highest.
Yes.
And this phase probably might not come for the next thousands of years. So
Okay.
just keep that in mind. So
Okay.
don't be worried about one yuga, one loka, one universe. There are n number of universes. There are infinite universes. There is infinite aspects of time.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's so complex, but we have to come out of that complexity,
Exactly.
So
That's
difficult.
why one of the Abhyasis I told you, asked, why did Babaji write such a complex book when we have to go towards simplicity?
Yeah.
So answer
And
I gave him this. Next time you catch hold of Babaji, ask him this question.
sure. And one another thing is, see, the center itself is infinite, right? So the space is also infinite. So how is it like? How do we merge?
Infinite merges into infinity. There is this famous sloka in Upanishads. Purnamadam Purnamidam. You remember that sloka?
uh,
Infinite. When the infinite merges with the infinite, it becomes infinite. When the infinite is subtracted from the infinite, still infinity is there. You add infinity to infinity, you will get infinity only. You subtract infinity from infinity, you get infinity only. So all what you say concepts of mathematics, operations of mathematics becomes valid at that level. That's what they're talking about.
so our journey is like infinite.
Yeah, exactly. That's why Babaji is written towards infinity. Till the end of Mahapralaya. Till that time, you continue. And obviously, Mahapralaya is within the time frame. Till that time, we will continue to evolve towards the center. We become more finer and finer and become more and more identical with the center. That is what happens. Even now, Babuji is journeying. Even now, Lalaji is journeying. Even now, Krishna is journeying. They are all kind of in different realms. And what they catch hold of, they actually pass it on to the humans through the hierarchy. That is what happens. So our alignment with the center, so to say, is something that is continuous. Remember, as long as we have the body, as long as the creation exists, our alignment with the center can never become 100%. Some semblance of difference is maintained. You can say 99.99999% similar, but even that 0.00001% difference is still valid at that level. So, however meager the separation, still there is separation. The what you say, there is no merger, so to say. So, since there is no merger, our alignment to the center continues infinitely till the Mahapralaya comes. Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
With every subject that we study, we recognize that suppose you take a famous singer. You know what a famous singer who has grown to the top of their art will say that there is a small drop in the ocean of that art. Now it doesn't matter which subject you take, everyone will just feel like that only at the top. That in this infinite expanse of art form, it could be singing, it could be dance, it could be any form. Infinite expanse of mathematics, infinite expanse of chemistry, infinite expanse of physics, we are such a small drop. We are trying to carve out one small thing out of in this infinite expanse. That's what everyone will feel in the end. No matter which subject they study, it hardly matters. Okay, and we are talking about people who are in the material realm. We are not even talking about people in the spiritual realm. Now, these people in the material realm also will feel the same thing as people in the spiritual realm feel, although the context in which they feel will be different. That's all. Okay, Manikandan. Manikandan, go ahead.
So, brother, this is the topic in the Sahajamar philosophy. This is different from the slide deck that you are showing. The
topic?
preliminary.
Which
Sorry.
topic?
Under preliminaries to meditation, the pose he is talking about. But he mentions one line. At last, it came to his understanding that just as the latent motion was grosser in comparison to the absolute with which it was connected, even so, he must take up something grosser for the purpose to enable him to attain the desired ideal of reality. This led him to the conclusion that he must create in him a form of contraction or withdrawal similar to that at the time of pralaya. So he is referring about this posture, contraction portion. So is it like sitting? He is saying that contraction is kind of a grosser form. Is this equating to taking a grosser form, which will take him to pralaya?
Now, in the part of going back towards the center, how to proceed toward the center? That was the question. The center is the most subtle. As long as we have a grosser form, we are not able to go towards the subtle. So we have to create something which is going to help us go towards the subtler form. So he's just giving you two separate things that if you want to create or go towards the subtler form from the grosser form, you have to create a form of contraction. And that is why we actually sit with the folded legs, with the arms entwined or one top of one another to create that position of contraction, posture of contraction. So in a way, you can say the minus into minus leads to plus. In mathematics, minus into minus leads to plus. So we are at a grosser stage. We take the form of contraction, which is the second thing, which is also a grosser only initially to start with. But ultimately, it will actually take us to become more dormant, which is the state that we have to go towards the reality or the center. The center is dormant. So if we are moving the limbs, so Daji talks about this in the heartfulness, whether you can actually experiment with keeping the limbs outstretched or the legs outstretched and see what is the impact. Then Joshua Pollock says that he's already tried all those things. So what people worked out after multiple tries is that when you actually bring the body into a form of contraction, that is the best way to actually go towards the center. So he is now relating the importance of the posture in our journey back towards the center. And that's the importance of the posture. A posture that you can actually maintain for a long time in a state of contraction, which allows the body and the mind to settle down and be still in order that we can actually get a peep into the stationary state of our existence. Our original state is stationary, which is in alignment with the center. But we have now got used to activity. So when we sit in a Sukhasana position, Stiram Sukham Asanam, if you sit in that particular position, you are going to make your body and the mind still. Only when we make the body and the mind still, we can actually get a glimpse of our original condition of stationary, which is in alignment with the center. So just to kind of give an example to you, is that in comparison to the center, the latent motion is grosser. Likewise, you can say that even the position of the grosser, the state of contraction that you sit, is actually grosser only because it's with the body that you're sitting. But eventually, once it settles down, you will be able to cross over that realm and enter into the alignment with the center. Okay, so he's only giving you a contrasting example, that's all. And that's in the context of the posture, importance of posture.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Kishore.
Yeah, brother, I have in the last line of your slide, it is saying like not possible to complete mergence is not possible to preserve a nominal difference between soul and God. So one God we learned like it is like which derived from the akasa or the space. And then something you also was explaining was like when the Mahapralaya happens, like it again goes back, and you were saying something about the Akasa itself also has a element of God. So I am a bit confused here. What is that element? Like one which is derived, that is clear, like it came from there. But what is that after Mahapralaya, that some element kind of thing you were saying? And which God we are saying here, like between soul and God?
When we are talking about the God here, we are talking about the center. When we are talking about the soul, we are talking about the identity. Till the time of Mahapralaya, the identity is maintained. The identity of every soul is maintained. Although the soul does recognize its identicality with the center, because both are Akash only, in essence. It maintains the separation till the time of Mahapralaya. But at the time of Mahapralaya, we just now spoke about it, that those souls which have recognized the identicality with the center, they go back. They merge back into the space. They become space only. They are no longer a separate entity, they become space only. Those souls which have not been able to get that identicality recognized, they come back into the next phase of the creation. That is what happens.
Yeah, this is clear. Sorry, just to refine the question. So, is there two aspects of God, or when something comes in exam, suppose a question, where should I relate to? Like the God, which is a manifestation of space, or the in the space itself, what is the essence kind of thing? Like what should I generally understand of that God?
One thing I can assure you, you will not get a question of this depth. That I can assure you. So you
Okay.
don't need to worry about that. But from the perspective of understanding or grasping, you can say, see, all of you people are having difficulty in trying to understand that the space gave rise to God. That is where I think many of you people are actually struggling to get this particular concept. Because normally, that's why I say gave you the aspect of Vivekananda also, that you have to go beyond the space consciousness. Now here we are talking about the space giving rise to God. That is where the most of the confusion or the difficulty arises. Now, if you were to look at it simply as that part of the space where from everything started as the God, that becomes very easy. Then you will not separate God from space. That part of the space, for example, even in science, we talk about the Big Bang. Just take the Big Bang. There are a lot of things which are going against the Big Bang now. There are a lot of things coming out. But if you just take the Big Bang had a point where it started. Now you can take that point in space where the Big Bang has started as God. That point. You can say that God is that point in space. That's it. That's the easy way of relating to God and space. Don't think that God is something separated which is out of the space. No. It is that point in space that it's God itself. That's the easiest way to relate God and space. I hope it makes it easier in this way.
Yeah.
No, it is clear, brother.
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, brother Anand.
Okay, so this is in relation to this evolution of consciousness, and when we are talking about this journey through these different regions. So Daji talks about this evolution of consciousness, or the subtle body, right? Then he says mind goes from thinking to feeling, intellect to intuition, wisdom, and then ego to love, right? That's a journey of evolution of consciousness. How does that relate to this journey here, where we are going through this heart region, mind region, center?
They are both related. All the points that you're talking about are nothing but different levels of subtleties of consciousness. That's all. The regions that you're talking about is nothing but different levels of subtleties of consciousness. So you can say 10 hertz to 30 hertz is heart region, 30 hertz to 50 hertz is mind region, 50 hertz to 70 hertz is central region, and 80 hertz is central. Something like that. It's different levels of subtleties of the consciousness. That is all it is. Within that particular range, you have further levels of subtleties of consciousness, and that is what you call as points or the chakras.
So the ego, we talk about this ego, mind, and they also remain at some subtle level.
They are all gone. When we enter into the central region, all these things are gone. Because remember, evolution of consciousness. When we enter into the central region, we go beyond consciousness.
Okay.
When we enter into the central region, we are only at the level of awareness and gross identity. So there is no consciousness there. So all these components that you are now talking about, Satchidananda, not the Satchidananda, the Manas Buddhi Chitta Ahankar that you are talking about, all of them end there at the level of the entry into the central region. So
Okay.
all these modifications of the subtle body in terms of evolution of consciousness is before we enter into the central region. All that remains when we enter into the central region is that it's only the awareness with the gross identity. That's all.
Okay.
That's all that remains. Now you are beyond the realm of the consciousness, and that is where you are now said to be at the potentiality of the consciousness or the root of consciousness. That's where you are at when you enter into the central region. So in the central region, you don't talk about ego, you only talk about identity. In the central region, you don't talk about consciousness, you talk about awareness.
Okay, so okay, that's good actually. So thanks for that. We also talked about this spirituality, reality, the potentiality, and then beyond, right? That I guess also relates to these stages, right?
Exactly.
So spirituality is up to which stage?
Go back to Babuji's thing. End of spirituality is start of reality.
Yeah.
And where is the start of reality? When you enter near the center.
That is a start of reality. Okay.
That's the start of reality. So the entire journey from the first point up to the show, after you cross the show, you have entered into the realm of reality now. So that's the end of spirituality. You have entered into the realm of reality. Now, what happens when you enter into that realm of reality? You start absorbing the essence of reality. Now, when you observe the essence of the reality, you are now ending the reality. Now, you are established in real bliss. When the awareness of that real bliss is also now gone, then you can be said to have reached the destination.
But what's potentiality behind the
Potentiality is at a lower state. Potentiality is when you enter into the central region, till you enter into that reality state, that is where the potentiality rises. It is potentiality of the consciousness. It is not potentiality of reality. It is potentiality of the consciousness.
I think, yeah, that supports the consciousness. I think that's what
Exactly.
Thank you, brother.
Girish?
After Pralaya, next creation, in the next creation, is new identities also will created?
Definitely. This is something that was asked. Are new souls still being born? Or it's kind of, it's the same souls which keep coming and going, coming and going.
Yeah.
No, just look at a cricket match. If the same people play cricket match for the next 100 years, do you think that you're going to watch it?
Yeah. No.
You will not watch it, right? You want
Yeah.
new people to keep coming and going, coming and going. God also wants new souls to come and go, come and go. Why does He want to have the same soul again and again? Right?
Okay.
So
Right. Yeah.
definitely it will be different. See, as and when some souls are removed, some souls are getting added on. So then, see, the souls keep rotating among all the different levels of existence. There are multiple levels of existence, and that is conceptualized in different ways. We spoke about the 14 lokas. You remember last time around? That's one way
Yeah.
of conceptualization. There are other ways of conceptualization of the lokas. So the people, other way of conceptualizing is you are now existing as a realm where you have the physical body. You can exist at a realm where you require only the subtle body and the causal body. You don't require the physical body. Then you can exist as a realm where you can require only the causal body and you don't require any subtle or the physical body. So there are multiple ways in which we can actually recognize that the realms. Those are all things that we can actually grasp as we go higher and higher. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
definitely new souls are coming, and then older souls are which are kind of in alignment with the center also going back. They'll all be removed.
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So after every exams, some people pass, no? They are pushed to the next run, next standard. If you keep holding on to the same people who have passed, then what's the point of exams? Likewise.
Yeah, right.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Thank you.
Kishore,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Yeah, brother, this is more of a curiosity type of question. So you were explaining just some time back, like when somebody enters into central region, so manas, buddhi, chitta, ahankar, all these things are gone. So obviously, I think that's why he's a living dead now, and the dependence of master also obviously increases, right? Because we are not aware what our ego itself is gone.
Correct.
Now master who is already we don't know, he's much beyond higher. How he could be, I was trying to like imagine. That's why it's a curiosity question. How he is ensuring like a disciple is progressing or something like that.
It's a very interesting question. If we are going to borrow our awareness from the master, and it's through the master that we're actually going to go towards the center, how do these work? They are authorized by the divine to do this particular work. So they observe the essence of the divine, and the divine authorizes them to help Abhyasis who come into the central region, the souls which come into the central region, to take them towards the center. So the master takes them towards the center with that awareness. And then at the level of the center, the master makes this soul also like themselves. Because at the end of the day, when we go towards the center, like the master, you also start absorbing the essence of the center. That's all that happens. You just need to reach that stage. And that last stage of the journey where you have to process through the central region, the master will teach you how to progress through that journey without setting up any waves of resistance. That is what happens. That's why you are taught a new way of swimming. A swimming, normally when we swim, it creates a way of resistance. But there you are taught a new way of swimming, which will actually not create that wave of resistance. And then we proceed accordingly with his support and with his supervision along the central region, crossing the seven rings of splendor. In a way, you can say it's almost like surfing or gliding on the surface of water. So you're not even kind of pushing your hands like this while swimming. You're just kind of just floating through. And that floating is what is supported by the master. So in a way, you can say that master is also floating, you are also floating. He's kind of taking you in hand by pulling you along. Now, that is what happens. So there is no question of we progressing ourselves there. Without the support of the master, there is no question of entry into the central region, nor is there any possibility of journey through the central region. Both are not possible. So
Yeah.
our alignment to the center will only occur with the help of the master. That's why the role of the master becomes more and more critical as we go higher in spirituality. Unlike material stuff, where the role of the master decreases actually as we go higher. Okay.
Thank you.
So Vidya sister.
Brother, I'm still in time itself. Um, that rings of ego and mind region, where does that time come, brother? Because we are going towards the center, in which circle the time comes, where we have to go beyond the time.
There
Or
are
the
two,
concepts are different. I did.
there are two concepts of time. One is time kala, other one is mahakala. Okay, and these two exist at two different levels. When we are at the level of our original existence, true existence, which is when we enter into the central region and we are now recognized at the state of our true identity, then we have crossed the circle of life and death, because we have now beyond the body consciousness and the mind consciousness, and we have now recognized that our existence is eternal. So the concept of life and death is now gone. At that time, you are said to have crossed the realm of the time, as far as individual level is concerned. But from the concept of the creation itself, the creation starts from the Kshob. So near the Kshob, there is still the Mahakal.
Yes.
So we now have to cross that particular realm also. So as we cross through the central region with our eternal existence in hand, we gradually cross through the Mahakal region also and enter into the state of the center after crossing the Kshob. So in order to cross the Mahakal region, you can say that you have to cross the Kshob itself to enter into the state of Tam. Then we can be said to exist beyond the realm of Kal and Mahakal, beyond the realm of time itself. But there is one level lower there where the Mahakal is still there, but the individual Kal is now crossed because you are now recognized your eternal existence at the individual level, at the identity level. Okay. So I think today's concept was not that easy because there are a lot of things. In fact, we had thought and hoped that many of these discussions that we are having today would have been as vibrant in many of the concepts. Even in fact, the concept of the identity that you spoke about, the concept of the avatars, all these things, we have not actually gone to the depth that we actually had hoped for. There are certain things which were covered, but if you go to the depth of each of these concepts, like you had so many questions today, it is quite likely that you will get a lot of questions about these concepts. Okay, so we will try to cover it at some point of time. Some of these concepts, again, we'll revisit it so that after you have grasped some aspects of it, now that one round is over, you will be able to go deeper into these aspects about the identity or about the avatars or about the cosmology or about the parallelisms in nature between the divine and the human, the concepts of the individual three bodies and the Brahman three bodies, all these things are not covered to the extent that we had hoped for. But we can go into those concepts at some point of time. We'll try to cover it, not to worry. Okay? Because, like one of the Abhyasis were commenting, no? Why do you pester your mind? Don't pester your mind. And that's a very common approach that many people take. Why do you want to pester? Whatever we are okay with, let's be happy with what we know and then live it. Okay, but the point is, all of these things will at some point of time add value to your journey, give momentum to your journey. That's the point of trying to grasp it. Now, you might grasp it in a clear way, you might grasp it in an uncertain way as of now, but at least you will know that these are the things that exist as you go higher, and that each of these things will become relevant as we go to the higher stages. Okay. Okay, Harun Kumar.
Brother, namaste to everyone. My question is related to transmission. Actually, in our system, transmission is a very essential and very sensitive flow of divinity. According to its observation, means observation, deep observation related to transmission, it's related to our thought power or it's related to our soul condition, brother?
It is related to the attentional power of the soul. That is what Lalaji writes. It is neither related to the thought power nor related to other things that you said. It is related to the attentional power of the soul.
And
This
one
is the
more, brother.
exact words used.
And here we are seeing the infinity, right? Inside our within us, we see the infinity, or external world, we have to see the infinity. In space also infinity, right? Like that. Sky also infinity. Here, what we correlated with the that point of infinity, brother?
Which point of infinity are we talking about? We did not talk about any point as far as infinity is concerned.
Here, one book we say, and some words also we seeing related to infinity, right? I'm asking about that point.
Okay, point is not in the context of the 13 points. Again, I come back to the same answer that I gave last time around. Remember, the journey in the microcosm is actually leading to a corresponding journey in the macrocosm. Okay, I think if you can remember that particular aspect, then this question will be answered. Where will you feel infinity as you progress through meditation? You will actually feel infinity within you, not outside. It is within you. What you see outside is the infinity projected from within you. That's what the Upanishad says. That's what all the spiritual books says. The infinity is within you, and it is that infinity which seems to be projected out from you. So where do you experience the infinity? It is within you only, not outside.
Okay, thank you.
Shrikant.
In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Kalos me. So I felt that it's a hint at his spiritual progress. And another question is there is the concept of Mahakala Chakra in one of the Complete Works books. So can you please throw more light on these two questions?
We will cover that aspect of the Mahakala Chakra as we go through the efficacy of Raja Yoga and towards infinity and various other chapters. We will cover that. In terms of Kalosmi that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if you just read Bhagavad Gita, the 10th and the 11th chapters, Vibhuti Yoga and Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga, I think these are the two chapters, the 10th and the 11th. Actually, Krishna explains what he is in all different life forms. In a way, he actually says that everything that is manifested is nothing but him, he himself. It is just that each one has taken their own separate identity and they seem to think that they are separate from him. And all that made the creation necessary is to get rid of this idea of separateness. That is all the need for the creation. He says that I am the Indra among all the Devatas. I am the Shiva among all the Rudras. So he goes on explaining so many different things. What he is, he says he is the Kapila among a particular category of saints. He says that he is Bhrigu among another category of saints. So if you actually go look through the 10th chapter, the Vibhuti Yoga, you will actually be surprised. Then at one point of time, you will actually wonder who is he not. Everything which is the basis for the creation and every aspect of manifestation of the creation is him only. If that is the case, that is what we actually talk about in our system. I am Brahman, all is Brahman, all from Brahman. That's the concept that you were talking about when Krishna says that I am everything. And but in each of these things, whatever is the best, that is what I am. Now you might wonder, why are the other things in the same category not the best, so to say? The answer for that is very simple. Those things in that particular category which are not the best are those people or those living forms which they feel that degree of separation as higher from God. The higher the degree of separation that we feel from God, the more we are away from that godly presence. The more closer we actually feel with that relationship with God, the more we actually become identical with God. That's all that happens. That is what he is actually talking about in Bhagavad Gita. And since Kala is one aspect of the creation, he says that he himself actually becomes the Kala. And in the name of Kala, he is there in everybody's life. In the name of different functionaries of nature, he is there in everyone's life. In the name of the soul, he is there in everyone's life. That is what he is talking about.
Okay. And as we progress spiritually towards the center and beyond, so we will also experience this condition which Krishna is speaking about. That's a possibility, right?
Because you don't now look at Kala, time, as separate from God. You start experience time as an aspect of God, manifestation of God. As long as we experience the things which are created separately from God, we're in the wrong path. The more we align with the God, we start looking at many of the things that we pass through in life as nothing but aspects of manifestation of God Himself, not separate from Him. That is what we'll undergo.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Girish?
The next book will be taken up efficacy of Raja Yoga only, just for a reference I'm asking.
Next one, no, next one we are covering 10 maxims.
Okay. Yeah.
After that, we'll come to efficacy of Raja Yoga, and then lastly, we'll go to towards infinity. That's how we'll go.
Okay.
The reason why we took Sahilmar philosophy as the second book was because there is a lot of commonality with the reality at dawn. So we thought it might be easier for you to go with. Then we'll take the 10 maxims. And the last two books will be efficacy of Raja Yoga. And then lastly, before we send you to the exams, we'll send you towards infinity. And then you can go and write the exams. Okay.
Okay,
That's what we
right.
have
Thank
actually
you.
thought through.
Okay.
Okay, Appa. Thank you very much. ಆಯ್ತು 10:35 10:45. Thank you very much for all your time. See, again, all that I want you to take as the last point is that each one of us are evolving, and our perspective on many of the things that we discussed will keep changing as we grow. Okay? Whatever we have discussed today is one perspective. Now, it is quite possible that as we grow higher and higher, our perspectives might change, and definitely it will change. Till you reach that stage where you cannot go beyond that perspective, and now you have hit that end. Ultimately, all of us will come to the same perspective in the end about the question of creation, about the question of God, about the question of soul or identity, about the question of body, mind, life. All of these things about master, we all will come to the same answer when we actually take up this particular question. Till we reach that stage where the answer that comes from within satisfy our heart and mind in toto, we will continue to have these questions in your heart. So don't take any of these questions as something that you have to kind of just master now. It is something that you will master as you progress through the journey of spirituality. Just keep that perspective in mind. So just be open to all the learnings that come your way. Okay? I think with this,
Today, many doubts have cleared actually. Lot of information we got it.
Sashmar philosophy is, remember I told you, Sashmar philosophy is the entire basis of our practice. Now, until unless we actually get to the depth of the Sashmar philosophy, many things will not be able to understand why we do certain things in certain ways. The simple question that Manikantan asked about posture. Why do we need to sit in a contracted posture? It is just that it's in the contracted posture that actually helps us to align towards the center, which is stationary. Now, the more we become still in the body and the mind while meditating, we are now in more closer alignment towards the center. That is what is happening. Okay. So everything that we do in our practice is somehow Babuji has related our practice to take us to the center the fastest. That was he has done. So every aspect of our practice is important. Okay. And in fact, Lalaji asks many different spiritual questions which are not yet answered. There is a lot of things to be explored in spirituality. Okay. So keep your mind opening for all the learnings that will come your way, because who knows what divine knowledge you will catch. If you keep saying, no, divine knowledge cannot be taught, it has to be caught. Who is going to catch what divine knowledge and what is going to unfold? Who knows? Be open to the possibility. That's all. Okay. No problem. Thank you very much for your time. And then we will see next Friday, we'll have the Krishna Janmashtami celebrations in Kanur. So we will not have the Janmashtami celebrations. We will not have the class next Friday. If you people want to take a break on Tuesday, we can take a break. But if you want us to cover one or two aspects of the things that we did not discuss in detail, We could not go to the depth, like the identity or the avatars or something like that. We can cover some of those things on Tuesday. I'll leave it to you people. If you want us to cover it, we can cover it. Or if you want us to cover later on, we can cover it later on. We are okay with that. Otherwise, you can have a 1 week break, and then after that, we'll continue from the 19th. I'm okay with either.
We'll continue, brother.
We'll continue, brother, or more questions we can ask, in fact, if any confusion is there.
So we'll bring the topic of the identity and the avatars.
Yeah. I was going to say break, but I don't know.
Brain,
even I prefer minimum breaks. Lesser the breaks, the better.
I'm okay with the break.
No, brother, I think on Tuesday we can have the class.
Yeah. Have class on Tuesday.
We will have the break anyway for 1 week. After Tuesday, you'll have a break for till next week. You'll not have anything. So you can have a break, and we also have the luxury of the time now because there are some things which have got extended by a few weeks. No, the pre-work has got extended by a few weeks, so we have a bit luxury of the time. Not to worry. So we'll have that session on Tuesday, and after that, we'll have the break till next Tuesday, and then from the next Tuesday onwards, we'll cover the 10 matches. Okay, that will be the plan.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Good
you,
night to
brother.
everyone.
Thank you,
Namaste.
brother.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, brother.